Good afternoon, or should I say evening, 6 o'clock now. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to our Artrepreneur series. We have the fabulous Patrice Cameau.
You got it.
Okay. I had to make sure I said it right, put some respect on her name. And thank you for Patrice for that lovely Nipsey recommendation. And I'll let you share a little bit why Nipsey was our selection for tonight. I briefly want to introduce Patrice, and then I will pass the baton because we have an excellent night to give us some tips on garnering great PR. Patrice is the owner of Camp Space, a content creator studio for women of color located in Hyattsville, Maryland. Through Camp Space, Patrice is able to serve women creators from beginners to experts by giving them private, affordable space to tell their stories via their digital, visual, and audio content. Patrice is also a communication and marketing expert with 15 plus years of experience elevating a host of sports, nonprofits, entertainment, and lifestyle entities. Having managed publicity and marketing campaigns for the Super Bowl champion Troy
Polamalu. Polamalu.
Polamalu, excuse me, Troy, the veterans of foreign wars, Covenant House International, Gangster Vegan Organics, and Grammy-nominated artist Wale. Patrice is passionate about strategically telling her clients fascinating stories. She received her bachelor's of arts degree in communications with an emphasis in public relations from the University of Maryland, College Park, and a master's degree in public communication, from American University. When Patrice isn't running space or working with her clients, she is spending time She's spending time with her 3 times deployed Army reservist husband and their 3 children. So Patrice is a very, very busy woman, and we're so happy that she gave us her time this evening. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the baton to Patrice so we can have our presentation kick off.
Thank it up now, no big deal. But in the meantime, while that's opening, if everybody can go in the chat and introduce yourself in the chat. If you can tell your name, your city, Instagram handle, that would be great, just so we have an idea of who's here, where you guys are, from. I'm assuming most of you guys are in the Prince George's County area. But that would be really great. And then also so that I can connect with everyone when this is all said and done on Instagram. Let's pull this presentation up. PG County represent. Malik, thank you for that great opening. And as you said, I own Camp Space, which we'll get a little into. I'm actually in Camp Space right now. It's a content creator studio. We serve primarily women of color content creators, but anybody can rent the space and create here. It used to be a co-work studio. So this was one of the very few co-work spaces in camp when we opened in 2018, but we did a pivot. We did a pivot earlier this year before COVID-19. And I'm glad that I did that because I felt like that was the better way to serve the people who are spending money with us. So it looks like the presentation is about to, all right. So let me share my screen. There we go. Share. Can everybody see that? Yes, I hope. I don't have the chat going, but I assume if there's an issue, somebody will send me a text. This is crazy. These things are also new to me. All right. So like I said, real quick, if everybody can just please introduce themselves in the chat, give me your name, your city, and your Instagram handle like I did at the bottom. My name is Patrice. I am living in College Park. I'm in Hyattsville right now, and that is my Instagram at Patrice Cameau. What we're going to be covering is how to tell your story and land great media. I'm probably going to be kind of repetitive with some of the things that I say, but it is so important that you know how to tell your own story. Not just to have media, right? Like not just so you can be in newspapers and on TV, but you gotta be able to advocate and speak on and speak up for yourself in whatever it is that you're doing and whatever it is that you're bringing into the universe. So it's my goal that the tools that I present to you guys today will help you do that more effectively and I think more confidently, because sometimes we just don't be confident. We'll be knowing how bomb we are. So hopefully what you get today will help you feel that much better. All right. Okay, there we go. Look at me, all technical. So again, this is what we're going to be talking about today, and what we will cover. All right, so I'm trying to keep, I don't want anybody to be bored. I want all of this information to be useful. So I'm going to try, what I've done is I've condensed everything into 4 key points that I'm hoping you're able to follow. So the first thing that we are going to talk about is, what is PR, right? So if you have heard it before, I know people use that term all the time. I need a PR, I need a publicist, but we're really gonna talk about it today so that everybody is very clear on what it is. We'll also get into why it matters. So you really need to understand the concept of PR in order to be able to do it effectively. I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in communications and PR. I don't think you need to have all that. Matter of fact, I know you don't need to have all that, but there are some like super basic concepts and ways that you need to know how to move when you are pitching your own story. And then we'll get into why your story matters. Again, as I said previously, we all have amazing stories that I feel should be shared. That's why I have a content creator studio, because I feel like, and I'll get into this a little later, we all have influence. And we all can use that influence to live the life of our dreams. And that influence comes from what we've learned, our experiences, what we've been through, who we've been around. All those things make us dope. And that's why you matter. And that's why your story matters. And also, like, when you share your story, you're inspiring someone else to do something or to act. So that's why it's really important, right? It's this idea of paying it forward. And then finally, how can you land great media? So the bulk of this presentation is going to be me telling you what you need to do to land great media. And when I say great media, I mean things like Essence Magazine, Fox 5. I haven't watched Fox 5 in a week because Allison is no longer there. I'm gonna keep it 100, I'm gonna keep it a buck. Allison's not there and I'm a little upset with that. But I have had many clients on Fox 5. I've had clients in Essence Magazine. I have had clients in the Washington Post. So we're gonna get into that. Like, how do you make that happen for yourself? And then just a little bit of housekeeping at the bottom. And I think I took this quote from somebody else's presentation, so I hope they don't sue me for it. But this content is for educational purposes only, and it cannot be used for resale. So please don't take it and pawn it off as your own, because I worked really hard on this. I don't think you guys would do that, but I have to say it, right? Because you got to handle your business. So who am I? And I think if you decided to join this webinar, it might have been because you saw me talk about it, but I'm Patrice. And I wear a lot of titles, right? As you can see, mom, wife. I started a podcast. I'm a native Prince Georgian. I'm a content creator. I own a business, which is where I am sitting in right now, Camp Space. I'm a Terp. Shout out to all the University of Maryland Terps. I know we have one, Brianna, who's in the building. And if there's anybody else, I love you. But this is really an example of how, like, we're all very multidimensional. None of us are one thing, none of us. And once you're able to really understand all the great things that you are, I personally think that it makes it even easier to talk about yourself and connect to people who you want to also be sharing your story, i.e. journalists and media representatives. And just so you know, I really do try to encompass many of the different facets of my life, the different things that I do when I am telling my story. So, and we'll get into pitching later, but you know, if I want to tell a member of the media about Camp Space, I'm not just saying, you know, I own this business and write about it. I'm saying I'm a mom, I'm a wife, And I'm working really hard to make sure that other content creators like myself get what they need from the space. We have a podcast. So the more you're able to hone in on all the great things that you are, and the more that those things like work together, the more that your story is just even that more attractive to media, and to not even to media, right? To your social media followers, to your podcast listeners, really anybody who's taken the time to buy into what you're selling. And even if you're not selling it, if you have this a public facing persona, I guess, I don't know if that's the word, i.e. an Instagram page or a podcast or a website, then you selling something. You selling your opinion, you selling your pictures, your selfies, you're selling something. So the more well-rounded you can be when you're presenting this package of who you are, I think the more likely your audience will be able to connect with you and then want to share it with other people, right? Because we want to increase the eyes. That's important. So just that's a little bit about me, and this is more about my work. So I've been doing PR consulting for 15 years. I started in 2005, right when I graduated from college. I worked at a big PR firm in New York. My clients there were boring, so I started working with some of my friends from Maryland, like their own stuff. So I've been legit doing this for 15 years. Some of the clients that I've worked with, I've done work with nonprofits, the USO and Veterans of Foreign Wars. I'm also a military wife, so I have a very close connection to those. The Nicholson Project is a recent nonprofit that I work with. RAIN, I was their marketing manager, did a lot of work with them. I've done some work for entertainment entities, like Malik mentioned, Grammy-nominated rapper from the DMV, Wale, who I've done a lot of local press for him for different ventures. And most recently, I did the branding and the PR and the marketing for Gangster Vegan Organics and their sister restaurant that will be opening soon in DC called Raw-ish. Really excited to tell you more about Gangster Vegan. They are in this presentation. Just amazing brand. So I've been able to run the gamut on the type of organizations that I've been able to represent. And again, when I say represent, I mean I am helping them brand themselves, I am helping them tell their story, and I'm helping them lay in great media, which is why you guys are here. And while I've helped a lot of different brands, that one at the bottom, Camp Space, which you also see behind me, is the one that I love the most because it's the one that I've created. So I built this business. I started in 2015. We opened in 2018. But through all of that, I was always working with other clients. I was always doing other stuff and then my own. I was putting my own last, to be quite honest with you. And it wasn't until last month, end of June, early June, early July, right? Last month or two, where I decided to cut back on all of my client work and just focus on telling the story of Camp Space. And since I've done that, as you'll see, the rewards and the media that I've been able to land has really been, I'm really proud of myself. I was paying a PR person, but budgets got tricky and I had to stop and I had to really just take it on myself. And I'm proud of what I've been able to do. And that's another reason why I'm here today, to share this great information with you guys. So while you're here, I feel like if you decided to register for this webinar, it's for a few reasons, right? You're ready to level up. You want to see your name in newspapers and in magazines. You want to tell your own story. Maybe you're sick of other people telling it for you. Maybe you feel like people just don't really understand what it is that you are offering, whatever your product or service is. Maybe you just feel like people don't get it and you kind of want to have a journalist or somebody write about it so that it can be a little more clear. Maybe you have just a bomb thing, whatever it is. Maybe it's just you bomb, but the world doesn't know it yet. And so you want to start telling that story. Or maybe you aren't really sure what PR is, period. And you saw PR on the flyer and you were like, oh, you know what, let me do that. Or maybe you my homegirl or my homie and you just here to support. Or maybe you have a tight budget and you can't pay a big PR company to do what it is that I do for, you know, for clients. Whatever the reason, you're here. And I really do hope that you get something out of it. We do have someone in the we have a chat moderator, my homegirl Bree, who's the other Terp. And if you have questions, you can definitely pose those to her. But yeah, so let's get into it. And we're gonna start with this quote, right? By me, okay? We all have influence, and that influence, look, I'm not even reading my own quote right. Let me start over. We all have influence and should be using it to create the lives of our dreams. I said that a little earlier, but I'm saying it again because I want everybody to internalize it. We all have influence. We all have influence. And one of the, that really stuck out to me, I would say this year, last year, this time when we were celebrating Nipsey Hussle's birthday, and you'll see there are some paintings of Nipsey in the space because his birthday is on Saturday. And he was actually the impetus to me changing this business into a content creator space. And, you know, through watching how he moved and how he built businesses and how he literally came from selling shirts and CDs on the corner of the strip mall that he now and him and his family now own today. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that, right? Like, we all have influence. We all can do this. We all can take what's in us intrinsically and share it with the world and inspire people, which then will allow us to live the lives of our dreams, right? We can all do that. And I'll be honest, like, by focusing on my own business and deciding to cut back on the clients and tell my story, I'm sharing my influence. Like, this right here is me sharing my influence with you so that I can inspire you to go out and share your story. And then it's like just a ripple effect. So like, I really hope you internalize this. Definitely screenshot this, okay? Because this is something that you want to kind of keep and hold on to. And really being able to take your influence and craft it and share it. You know, PR plays a big role in that. You know, the fact that we can take these amazing media outlets that have millions and millions of subscribers and readers, and we can just reach out to them, to their reporters, and say, hey, I'm doing this. And then they share it to all those people. Like, that's an amazing tool to have. So again, this is why you're here, and you're going to learn a lot more about that. So first things first, like I said, what is PR, right? So by definition, and I'm going to read this. I'm not going to read many of the slides because I don't like when people do that, but I'm going to read this one because it's a definition. Public relations, PR, is the practice of deliberately managing the release and spread of information between an individual, organization, and its public audience. Okay, so I'm going to say some of those words one more time. The practice of deliberately managing the release and spread of information. Okay, so I have three pictures here, three very recognizable figures. All right, number one, we have Kanye. Say what you want about Kim and Kanye. Don't say what you want about Kanye, because if you know me, you know there's a special place in my heart for him. But say what you want, they are PR masters, okay? From the PR stunts to the crazy tweets, right, when an album's about to come out, to the half-naked pictures on social media, to the cultural appropriation, all of that is PR. And I am willing to bet that 95% of it is all very planned and very strategic. And even if we think it's just kind of by circumstance, oh, he just happened to get up and pick his phone up and started to tweet, I don't think so. And that's me having my PR hat on. It's all working to get press, whether it's good press, whether it's bad press, you gonna check for it. They're gonna get them eyes. You buying, or at least looking at what they're giving you. And let's be clear, revenue is really important, but in the PR world, there's something called impressions. And that basically means how many people see it. Impressions in the PR world is just as important as the monetary gain. So if I put something out and I got 1 million people click on it, even if they didn't spend any money, that's 1 million people that now know what I got going on. That's beneficial and that's important. The second or the middle person, not second, because Beyonce's never second, okay, is Beyonce and her publicist, Yvette Noel Schur. Miss Yvette has been Beyonce's publicist for many, many, many years. And I think the Beyonce brand is so amazing because she only tells us what we want to hear, or what she wants us to hear, right? So, you know, we can all think that we know how B lives. We can make these, I know they be doing this, but Beyonce they keep that on lock and key. And her publicist is very deliberate about managing the release and spread of information. Beyonce spent a whole year creating Black is King, a whole year, and not one photograph leaked, okay? Deliberately managing release of spread of information. And yes, Beyonce is next level, but I think we should all care for our brands and what our babies are and our influence, ourselves. We should have that same care for everything that we're putting out. Be deliberate with what you put out there. And then this last hat right here is from the Eat brand, DC-based brand. And if you've been watching the news or social media, you saw that this company, their founder, God bless his heart, okay, he had a cookout, and it was a lot of people during a pandemic. There was a shootout, and someone unfortunately died. Very horrible circumstance. God rest the soul of the person who passed away. And I'm praying for everybody that was hurt. And I am also praying for anyone who was there. I pray that they don't get COVID. But, you know, I am very familiar with this brand. I've never worked with this brand, but I followed it because I follow brands as something that's important to me. And I remember when they started, I remember seeing how he got all these brand partnerships with New Balance and Shoe City, like doing big things, young guy. And now I see this, and I don't think it's a fall from grace at all. I think that there does need to be some crisis management that is not happening, and they're not being proactive, and they're just kind of quiet about it. PR is also, again, like we said, the spread of information. So when this happened, he could have gotten in front of it. His team could have gotten in front of it and changed the narrative so that we wouldn't be walking around saying, oh, PR has the ability to do that. So, you know, 3 very different examples, but all public relations. And again, I am not going to be telling you how to be Beyonce or how to like have shock value of Kanye. But I really do want to give it some perspective because it is all public relations. And I'll say this other thing, right? A lot of things that we see are very strategic public relations, even when it seems like it's not. So when something goes viral, always, and this is my PR hat, right? I always kind of look at, was that by circumstance, or was that very carefully crafted by a company who knew exactly what to do, exactly who to share the story to, so that it would get coverage. So, you know, when I see these naked photo releases, like somebody hacked my iCloud, or again, Kanye going off on Twitter, like, here's the deal. For Kanye to have a press conference, you have to plan that, right? So if you're having a press conference and you say, I'm running for president, you have to plan that. And you know people are going to be reporting. That's all planned. That's all planned, people. So I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that PR, people are very crafty. And yeah, just keep that in mind. That's all. And be thinking about ways that you can do, you know, some kind of shock value things if it works within your brand. Okay. So these are my 4 elements of PR, my 4 elements of public relations, right? So if you are doing, if you're telling your story, it should encompass these 4 elements. The first element is that it should be strategic, right? It needs to make sense for now and for the future. I'm all about strategy. So anytime I'm making a decision, especially for my business, it's not about what do I want to do right now. It's about, okay, if we do this now, how does it play out next week? How do we make sure all of our audience is tapped in? What can we have them do to then share it so it hits more people? Like whenever you are going about this, this task of creating or telling your story and reaching out to media to get media, let's be strategic. What is the end goal here? Think about that. And even if the end goal isn't until another 3-4 years down the line, you should have that in your head. Okay. You got to be proactive. So we want to get ahead and we want to tell it ourselves. So I'll use myself as an example, right? You want to tell your story before anybody else tells it. And so when COVID hit, I, was really having these conversations with different media about how I am still trying to keep it going. And I did that because I didn't want somebody else to talk about how they have a podcast for women creatives of color, or so just trying to stay ahead of it. And that also works when you're talking about crisis. So as I mentioned in the EAT example, despite what happened, not despite what happened, but even through what happened, I really wish, and maybe he did, I just didn't see it. So if he did, my bad. Okay. But I really would have loved for someone to step up. And that would have been the publicist. Like, let's say I was their publicist. I would have been the one to step up and say, we are immensely hurt and saddened by what happened. In our effort to have an event to lift the spirits of the people of our city, the people who support us so much, we made a bad call in judgment. And we're paying the ultimate price by having someone who passed away. And we feel disgusted by that, and we're going to do whatever we can to support that family and support the families of everybody else who has been hurt. We've started a fund. We're contributing this amount. We're working with our partners to contribute this amount. And no, that wouldn't have changed anything, but that would have put them ahead of the story just a little bit. And those things are important. Outreach, right? So you have to reach out to people. You have to make real connections with people, and you have to give them useful content. This is more than just following a reporter on Instagram, right? This is more than just liking or reading an article. This is literally taking notes of who is talking about whatever it is you're selling. Whoever it is, and trust me, there is a journalist or a media representative out here talking about every single thing. You want to talk about collecting socks? There is somebody writing about collecting socks. There's a blog, Trust and Believe, about sock collections, okay? You need to find out who these people are. You need to search the internet for their info and build relationships with them. It shouldn't be just, hi, I want you to cover me. It should be, hey, I love what you're doing. And we'll talk a little bit more about this as we get into it. And again, so next we have that storytelling. So once you make the contact, then you're going to start telling your very special story. Clear and concise messaging that resonates, okay? And when I say resonate, I don't mean resonate with the world. I mean resonate with your intended audience. You have to be really clear. All right, so you guys have probably seen this guy before. I'm going to use this as an example of how I put those 4 elements into practice: that strategic, outreach, proactive, and storytelling, okay? So Chef Tobias Dorzan, he's a former client, ex-NFL player, and CFL player, reality TV personality, restaurateur, and chef to the stars. So I worked with him for about 3-4 years. And I was always very strategic with who I reached out to. I got a lot of calls from people that wanted to cover him, but I didn't say yes to everything because everything didn't make sense. But there were some things that made perfect sense, like the undefeated story with ESPN. He was a former athlete. He cooks for athletes. He needs to be on ESPN. So I worked really closely with that reporter to get this story done. And then the proactive piece comes in because I was contacting a lot of reporters before we even had news, right? So I would reach out to reporters and say, hey, this chef is in DC. He's really great. He's going to be opening a restaurant soon. Maybe we can do a little meet and greet just to get the relationship going. That's important, right? And that also comes into the outreach piece. So me finding who was covering great food, athletes, Instagram success, because a lot of his success has come from Instagram, as you can see with this story here. And making sure the outreach made sense, right? So when I pitched him to CNBC, I wasn't saying he cooks for athletes, right? We said, as you can see in the headline, Instagram is what made him make six figures. And we focused on social media for that CNBC one because CNBC Make It is for millennials. It's for millennial business owners. So I needed to have or craft a pitch or tell a story that made sense to them, right? And that goes back into that storytelling piece, which is the fourth part. So again, really being focused on how you want your story told, and then deciding who's going to tell that story best is how you're going to land just like top flight, A1, top tier media. Okie dokie. So before we had the four parts, right, of public relations, but now we have like this PR formula that I think if you do this, we gonna see your name in lights, baby, okay? So this is how you craft your own story to secure media. Go ahead and screenshot this. This will be, you'll see this probably, I think maybe 2 more times in the presentation. So if you miss it this time, you'll see it again, right? So it's your product and your service. And I'm gonna use those words, product or service, interchangeably, because like if it's a product, it's something like Camp Space. This is an actual place, a product that I sell by the hour for people, okay? But if you're a chef, then you have a service. So that's the difference. So I'll use those words interchangeably. And you're gonna connect that product or service to what's happening in the world. So what's happening in the world right now that's gonna make the world care, right? I'm not going to talk about, I can't think of an example right now. Can't think of an example. But whenever you're thinking about what you have and telling your story, you got to be able to connect it with something that's happening. And I'll give you an example of how I did that a little later. And so once you know your product and service, and once you can connect that to something that's happening in the world, right in the time that you want to tell it, then you're going to tell that combination to the right media contact. Okay. And like I said, we'll get into an example of this a little later on. All right. So number 2, this is part 2, right? Why PR matters. There you go. Sorry. Why PR matters. Okay. PR is important. PR matters because it's earned media, right? So it's free. You don't have to pay for it. Now you might have to pay the practitioner that's doing the work for you, but you actually don't pay the journalist. They decide to cover you off of the merit of the story that you told them, the timeliness of the story that you told them. That's amazing. So like you could pay $10,000 for a front page ad in the Washington Post, or you could tell a great story that's timely and get that front page article at no cost, right? That's why it matters. So some of the benefits, but the main benefit always, in my opinion, is increased revenue. So if you have a product or service and you are now sharing it with so many more people because of your PR efforts, then the goal is that you'll make some more money. You're going to spread the news. You're reaching way more people. But in addition to that, it gives you instant credibility. So if a journalist who is all about facts and telling the real story decides that your story is what their audience needs to hear or see or read at the time, then you are instantly credible. And I'll tell you this, since I've been pitching my own business, more people have come to Camp Space because they've heard about it. More people see it, and then the bookings are going up, which we'll talk about a little later. But PR also matters because you're building relationships. I have reporters who I worked with 7 years ago that I still talk to this day. And I might not be pitching them all the time, but it's like, these are now friends. These are people who, decided to cover my client. And so I want to update them on what I'm doing for myself because like we have a relationship now, and that's so important. As you grow whatever your service or your business is, or as you grow your own personal brand, that's so cliche, but as you grow that, relationships are important. You never know who's going to be here 1 minute and then another place the next minute, and you could, y'all could work together. So always. But then PR is also very important because it's evergreen, right? PR content and the things that come from telling your story can be shared over and over and over again. Shout out to the internet. And I'll give you a very, very simple example. So this client right here is Capital Chicken and Waffles. They're a former client. I worked with them 2015, 15, I don't know, but the owner, Sharice, is a very good friend of mine. She actually was my maid of honor at my wedding. Hey, Sharice. She opened this food truck and I did the branding as well as the PR outreach. And we got some really great press in addition to this Black Enterprise article. But this Black Enterprise article, as you see, is dated 2019. I worked with Capital Chicken and Waffles in 2015, okay? Or 2014 when they first opened. They did an article on them when they first opened in that 2014, 2015 range. And then come 2019, the reporter did it again, but she repurposed it because it was National Waffle Day. How about that? So she did a little blurb in the beginning, and then she just literally copy and pasted that same article from before back on Black Enterprise's website, right? So then the client obviously got a bunch of hits because their brand was now back in the forefront or back in the spotlight, back featured on Black Enterprise, which is like the business publication if you're Black. Like, what else is there? So that is an example of how public relations can really be evergreen. And again, shout out to the internet. If you have a media article that goes or that is shared or that features you, you'll always have that link. You can always share it. You can always show it off. You can always put it on your website. So that's why PR matters. Those are the many benefits of it. And in real life, right? So this is, Gangster Vegan. This is a success story, right? Of how PR matters, and it matters, and it can really do some great things for you and your product or your service. So this is a real life success story of a client of mine. I'm not going to say former because I still work with them sometimes. I love Tania and James. Okay. Okay. So by doing a very targeted PR plan, we got all these great things that happened, but it wasn't just about a targeted PR plan, right? It was about telling the story. So when we decided to work together, I had to get all the information about, this couple who was opening a plant-based restaurant. And I found out that Tania was a cancer survivor. And I realized that was the story. Okay. So it was about more than a new restaurant opening. It was about using the restaurant as an opportunity to tell the bigger story to the right media. And the right media was Essence, as you see, breast cancer survivor accomplished his dream of opening a plant-based restaurant 2 weeks before her double mastectomy. That's real life, okay? Tania legit opened that restaurant and then 2 weeks later had a double mastectomy. Like, she's a superwoman. And so that's the story. And from there, a lot of other media came. I continued to pitch. So that's one benefit, right? Tons of media being able to tell that story. And here we go, talking about timeliness. This breast cancer survivor story obviously came out in October, which is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So we did a lot of pitching around that time. When I say we, I mean me. Did a lot of pitching that time to tell this story. But aside from all these great media hits, their digital media following increased by, I just put 500%, but I'm pretty sure it was more than that because they're approaching 10,000 followers on Instagram. They're opening their third restaurant, which is going to be a new brand in less than a year. Increasing plant-based advocacy, but also increasing breast cancer awareness and using those two to work together to make sure that women, primarily Black women, are healthy. And then Tania's also gotten a bunch of speaking engagements. So she's now able to, by telling her story to the media, she's been able to, by opening this business and then telling her story to the media, it's opened up to so many more people. And she's now able to make more connections with other people and inspire other people who might be in a similar situation. So another example, and let me also be clear, you don't have to be a celebrity. These are not, I don't want to say regular people, but just everyday people like me and you who are doing amazing things, who are deciding to share their story strategically to land that great media. All right, so here's another quote. Screenshot this one if you want. This is from Hollywood publicist Ern Dukes. I love Ern. I went to a class with him that he had in DC. Sorry, my phone fell. And he's realer than real, and he represents like Keisha Cole, Remy Ma, a lot of people. He's the bomb, and he does PR for Fashion Nova. Doors are opening. The wait wasn't punishment, it was preparation. So while you're in this time of like, dang, I want media, I want my story to be told, don't even trip. It's not punishment. This is the time for you to hone in and get it right. That's why God brought you to this webinar right now, so that when it's time, you telling that story like nothing, okay? All right, so part 3, why your story matters. So we know what public relations means. We know why PR matters, and we know the benefits that can come from it. But now I want to talk about why your story matters. And I said this before, like, we all matter. We all have amazing stories. But most importantly, like, you're unique. We have many layers. We're inspirational, we're motivational. That example of Tania from Gangster Vegan, I tell her, like, she's a superwoman. She's a superwoman, the thing that she's done and the things that she's doing. And that's amazing. And we need to see that. And we need representation. We need to see our brown brothers and sisters in making money and building businesses and helping their community. So that's why your story matters. Connecting with the community is so important. And it's vital. And so that's why your story matters. And, you know, it's really, I think, a mindset shift. And my mindset shift has, I think, kind of turned into like this catchphrase, but it's real life. It's all about how you think, because what you think is what you're going to be. You know, I always was, I think, hiding behind my clients because I didn't want to share. I didn't want to be me. I would always have client events and I'd be like, no, don't put me on the camera. I'm working. I don't want to take no pictures. But it was like, Patrice, what are you afraid of, sis? What are you afraid of? You're working. Do it. Tell the world. And I don't feel that way anymore. Yes, I am a little scared. I was definitely nervous to be here right now, but I know that it's time. It's time for me to share my story. It's time for me to land great media so the world can see what I'm doing. And it's time for you to do that as well. So this picture here, this is just some media clips. I didn't even pitch camp when it first opened. Someone actually, they heard the rumblings. I was building relationships, so I was talking to a lot of people about camp, but I didn't specifically reach out to this reporter. But she reached out to me, and we were actually on the front page of the Hyattsville Life and Times. Let me tell you something. I don't see too many Black women on the cover of Hyattsville Life and Times. No shade, okay? Because the mayor of Hyattsville is a Black woman. Hey, Candace. But I don't see too many of us on the cover of Hyattsville Life and Times. So here again is an example of why representation is so important. And you never know who's watching, so just, you know, be ready to tell it. Okay, part 4. This is gonna be the meat. How can you land great media? How can you get noticed? First and foremost, you have to have a great product or service. So this conversation, this webinar is not for someone or something that's subpar, right? You better have something great, whatever that is. And you gotta believe it's great. You gotta believe it's great because you're not gonna be able to tell the story if you don't believe it's great, okay? I believe my business, Camp Space, is the best thing since sliced bread, okay? And that's why I do what I do. So you land great media in a few different ways, right? The one that we're talking about today mostly is you're going to be pitching journalists. Those journalists are editors, writers, producers, and content managers, okay? But you can also decide to write opinion editorials where you write your opinion and you submit that to a publication. You can go viral, which I said earlier is not always by chance. And if you're really great at what you do, the more viral and by chance it looks is like how much you planned it, right? Like you planned it so great that everybody thought legit it was just like this really insane viral thing. That means you're really good at what you do. Another way that you can land great media is to host a dope event or virtual event like what we're doing right here, right now. And I'll use an example. So as like I mentioned, we have these pictures of Nipsey Hussle in the space right now because his birthday is coming up. Last year, the year he passed away, we had a big birthday party for him. To honor him, we had artists. The entire space was filled with paintings of him and photographs. We had about 30 people. We honored him. It was beautiful. And then we pitched it to the media. Brianna, who's moderating the chat, she pitched it to the media because she's also a PR pro. Pitched it to the media, and we were on the Channel 7 News. So, you know, events can definitely bring about media, or you can blog about it, right? Like you can create your own content. And that is something that I'm really starting to get into. I have a website. I've been writing my own blogs, and I don't do it to get picked up, but I've definitely seen people who are just blogging really great pieces, and a journalist or a producer will happen to stumble on it, and then they want to share it with their much larger audience. And now because of COVID, and honestly because newsrooms are shrinking, right? You used to have 50 people working at a publication. Now you might have 20. Now reporters are looking for people like you and me to create the content for them so that they don't have to do it. So it would behoove you to start a blog or to start writing, or to even like write a little article on what you did, and just have it, you know, in your back pocket, even if you decide not to post it. In the event someone says, we love what you're doing, we want to cover you, but we don't have the resources to interview you. Do you have a piece you can submit? And I've done that. I'll show you guys an example a little later. This picture right here is a client, the Nicholson Project. They are a nonprofit in Washington, D.C., an art gallery, artist incubator, and urban farm. And we pitched, we did this, I think, in a week. But we were telling a great story of how the art was coming to Ward 7. It wasn't in Ward 7 before, but Stephanie, who I still talk to very regularly, was bringing it. She opened a beautiful building, and they were bringing something new to the area. And so they were on WJLA Channel 7. All right, now if you have a huge budget and you can pay somebody to do PR for you, then do that, right? This ain't for you. This conversation is not for you. Okay. But if you don't have a lot of money and you want to, again, tell your story, then you should do it yourself, DIY it, because it's going to save you money. You're, again, telling your own story. It's something different about when I email a reporter about myself and what I've created versus when someone else is doing it for me, or when I'm doing it for a client. I'm not saying it's better or worse, but it's just a little something different. You're going to be building your own relationships. And I think this is really important. You are getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. I get nervous when I send these pitch emails about myself, but that's okay. The nerves are good. Feel that, feel it. And this right here is an example of when I stepped outside of my comfort zone and I started to reach out to media. And this article actually just ran last month. And hello, Alice, if you go on my website or my Instagram link, you can read the full article. But it didn't cost me anything, okay? I got an email. This was during the Black Lives Matter racial reckoning, got an email, reached out to the CEO saying, listen, thanks for what you're doing. Here's what I'm doing. And this is why it matters. She connected me with one of her reporters and he interviewed me. So you can do this, guys. You can do this. All right, but if you're going to do this, we got to tell it the right way. Here's a reminder of that formula. So if you didn't screenshot it before, you can screenshot it now. Your amazing product or service matched with what's happening in the world, told to the media, the right media contacts, you're golden. And this is a real life example. So I'm going to use Camp Space as the example. And I'm going to talk through everything, right? So the amazing product or service is my business, my content creator studio for women of color. Again, anybody can shoot here, but I paid attention to who was spending money with me. And I just said, you know what, we're gonna make a lane for us, okay? And what was happening in the world was Black Lives Matter and COVID-19. So everybody knows what it was. Like, we have been home for March, April, May, almost June, like 3 months. George Floyd was killed, racial reckoning, ish got real. okay? And in that getting real, the world started to really recognize how amazing Black people were and how important it was to amplify Black voices. And shade, but no shade. I don't know if they still feel that way, but the doors have been open, baby. And these floodgates, we coming for you. So those two things happened. Well, that was the product and service, and this was the timeliness. And then I needed to find the right media contact. So these were journalists and media outlets that were talking about amplifying Black voices and supporting Black women-owned businesses. As you can see, that right media contact is very niche. That's how you're going to land the media that works, okay? And I literally sent an email, like I said before, that was one example. But another example was to XO Nicole, and this one didn't know, a reporter did respond, but I haven't gotten an article yet. That happens, but you know what? I tried. And I said, hi, I'm Patrice. I loved your article on this, which shows that I have done some research on what they cover. And I said, I also do this. I also support Black women by this. I have a studio. I have a podcast that features content creators of color. And I have this virtual session that helps creators navigate COVID-19 and how they can keep creating. I would love to share this with your readers. Please let me know if you have questions. That was the email. Super simple. And that email really was copy and pasted a few times. You tweak it a little bit for the different reporters. And, I've been able to secure some really great media. One of them was with Blogger. Now, here's an example of a reporter not being available, but the editor said to me, can you write the article? I sure can. So I wrote the article, and it was about using your content to see change in the world. And then her agenda, there was actually a reporter for that when we sat down, we interviewed, and this one was talking about pivoting. So different articles, but both subjects are very true to what is happening in the world today, right? Timeliness is so, so, so important. You guys can click on, or you can read both of these articles if you go to my Instagram bio link, or if you go to my website, patricecameau.com. And I'll also say that both of these media outlets, Blog Her and Her Agenda, they literally connect to my exact audience. Like, you have to be laser targeted with who your audience is and how that media contact can connect with what you have to give, because they want to know that their readers are going to care. So the readers of Blog Her and Her Agenda are going to care about a space that's for women content creators. So it's a no-brainer. And when you're connecting with the right media, more eyes are going to see you, and hopefully it'll increase your revenue. And speaking of revenue, right, let's talk the data, because that's so important. And I like to be really transparent when it comes to, talking about the money. Okay. So for me, it's about more than just seeing myself on websites, right? It's about more than seeing myself in the paper. I'm not that vain. I love myself, and I'm not that vain. It's about the bottom line. And when I started pitching in June, we had April, May, there was no revenue. Camp was hurting. And thank God I had these other PR clients that I was able to take some of that money and put it to camp to pay those expenses. But once these articles started hitting, and once, people started reading more about it and sharing and starting to come outside, things have been on the up and up. So far, July and August, or actually August, we've had a 98% booking rate. The month of August, we've had 20 new followers every day on Camp Spaces page on Instagram. And, people say followers don't matter, but followers do matter, because it means that it's more eyes seeing what you have, right, to offer. And when more people see it, more people patronize you, more revenue, okay? And all of this comes from this sharing my story and getting media. And my podcast, so Shades of Content, which is a podcast that I host that is produced right here at Camp Space for women content creators of color, we exceeded the 1,000 podcast download mark on Friday. Round of applause for myself, because I do all that. My engineer helps, but that was a part of me sharing my story, me landing the right media, me getting things put in different media outlets. And you know what? Even if, let's say you read one of the articles and blog her, but you live in Dallas, you can't come to Camp Space, but you can click on that podcast and listen to it. You can share. So extending this reach is super important and will always help you to increase your bottom line. Revenue is a goal of PR. So if you are, in this thing to just get features, that's fine. But let's be strategic here. How can those features bring you more money? All right, so let's start with some simple steps. And I know that was like a lot. I feel like, I hope you're not overwhelmed. You're amazing and you can do this, okay? Right now, I want you to start. We got some very simple steps. Please screenshot this. Figure out what makes you unique. Figure it out. For me, I'm a Black woman. I'm a content creator. I own a space for other women to create their content. It's beautiful. It's affordable. And it's private. So you ain't got to worry about getting COVID when you come up in here. Okay. Set up Google alerts. Set up Google alerts to see who's reporting about the thing that you have to offer. The thing that makes you unique, like I said, them socks, somebody's talking about it. Find out who that person is, or even just set up Google alerts that says content studio. So every time a reporter writes about a content studio, I'll get it. And then I can look up that reporter and find out more about their writing, about what they're writing or what they're covering, and add it to my list of people that I want to reach out to. Locate these relevant reporters on social media. Thank God for social media, because it's really kind of changed the landscape. I think for people like me who's actively pitching, it just makes it just that much easier. But I'll say this, I know there are some reporters who get annoyed with, being DM'd or being tweeted. But I think at least the people that I've worked with, when you reach out to them the right way, and you have a great story that's timely, they want it. They welcome the content because they want to share their stories. Their job is to share your story, whatever it is, whatever the content, what the topic is, but that's their job. So you want to be giving them content that works for them. But you also want to make sure you're being smart about it. You're not being intrusive. You're being professional. You're being respectful, all those things. The same way you would want somebody to reach out to you if they wanted you to do something for them. And just start sharing your story. Like, stop being scared out here. Don't be scared. Just do it. You got this. This is an example of me pitching myself back in Black Enterprise. So Courtly Conley, she's a contact that I've worked with for a very long time, but whenever she covers myself or my client, I'm pitching her, right? She's not giving me anything. This is where relationships, come into play. But this was in 2015. I was in Black Enterprise. So yeah, I guess I have been kind of telling my story a little bit, but not the way I be doing it now. I be out here now. So this quote is from Beyonce's publicist, who you saw a picture of her a little earlier. And I'm gonna read the quote, but then I'm gonna give a little caveat. Too many people doing too many interviews. I know your story. I want to know your art. Now that quote legit just negated everything I said, okay? Yvette came out here and just threw the whole presentation out the water, child. She like, girl, I don't want to hear your story. Get out of here. But for me, this doesn't mean don't pitch. This does not mean don't share your story. This means that you need to make your thing, your product or service, so amazing that it cannot be denied, right? Make your art so beautiful. Make your space so engaging. Make your content so thought-provoking. Make your photos so clear. Like, whatever product or service you're selling, make it that bomb that it can't be denied. Because the fact of the matter is, if it's what it is and if it's that great, actually people are gonna be reaching out to you to tell your story on your behalf, right? That's the goal. That's the goal. In the meantime, until that happens, you do have to do some work. Best believe Yvette is sharing Beyonce's story. There's some stories that Beyonce wants to put out that she got to do some work. She got to pitch some of that too. You know what I'm saying? So, and even if she don't have to do it now, She definitely had to do it back in the day when, before she was this iconic human being, right? So we should all be striving for an amazing product or service that really tells a story on its own, right? And you also have to figure out different ways to do that. And I'm definitely available to help you guys figure that out. If you want more help, we're nearing the end of the presentation. Little over, well, not really, because we didn't start right at 6 o'clock. If you want more help, I am available for one-on-one strategy sessions. If you book by, I think it's August 15th, you do get a discount. But with this strategy session, we talk through your goals, we figure out your audience, and we got to really understand what story it is that you tell best, right? So I'm really not telling the story of me having 3 kids and being an army wife. That's not my lane right now. Right now, my lane is providing a space for women content creators to be amazing and to make sure their influence is spread through the universe. That's the story that I'm telling right now. That's what's giving me what I needed to give me, okay? In these strategy sessions, I can help you connect with your key media contacts. And I send you a few email pitch templates that you can literally just plug in your information and, see what happens. So you can book now by going to either my website, patricecameau.com, or calendly.com/Patrice Cameau. And I think I just counted it to 175. They last about an hour. They are very worth it. And yeah, if you just need like a little more, I'm definitely available for those. So definitely visit the website below if you want to work with me one-on-one, because I'm even more fun in real life. Woo! We made it through. This is how I feel. We got through. This is my first webinar. So thank you guys. I hope there are people still here and everybody didn't say, girl, forget this. You ain't talking about nothing. But I really want to thank the Prince George's Arts and Humanities Council for extending this invite. Malik, I love you. You're amazing. We have a connection. Okay. And Josh, you're amazing as well. And I'm just really thankful that I had the opportunity to share my story, to help other people share their story. And really just to know that I want y'all to know that I'm really real about this. I have a relationship with Malik in the PGAHC through Brianna, who used to do PR for camp, who's a great publicist. If you guys need some PR work, I think she's in the chat. She reached out to them initially. They covered me and did a little video of the space. And then I was walking in the harbor, saw Prince George's Arts and Humanities Council at the old Peep store. I sent Malik an email because we have a relationship at this point. And I was like, hey, Malik, don't know what's going on, but let's figure something out. And he then offered me this opportunity to do this webinar. And I'm just really thankful. So yeah, I'm going to take it off of, I think there might be some questions, maybe, I don't know. But really quickly, before we do that, so let's hold the questions. Before we do that, this is a quote from you, and I hope you guys say this. I'm dope AF. I don't want to curse because my mom might be on here. I'm dope AF. My story is inspiring. And I'm going to tell it to the world because it needs to be heard. So screenshot this as well. Print this joker out. Put it on your wall. And, commit to not just telling your story, but being confident and comfortable in telling your story. And knowing that when you do that, you're inspiring someone else. You're hopefully increasing visibility to what it is, your awesome product or service. You are increasing revenue, right? Like, let's stop being scared. Let's level up. We have enough in this world to keep us down. F that. Stand up, be amazing. And yeah, I'm excited. I hope that we all can connect after this. I usually am able to see what people are typing, but I can't because I'm locked in. But here is all my contact information, and that's actually what camp looks like in the inside. It's a beautiful space. It's beautiful. But that's all of our contact, my personal, my business, and the podcast. I hope you guys can, I would love to connect with you. I'm just really excited and happy that I got through it, y'all. Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing the screen. And I don't know if let me pull up my chat to see if there's anything that I need to be like aware of. Yay! Hey. Are there any questions? I can't hear anybody else. Will the presentation be available to rewatch? Yes, it will be on PGAC's Facebook page, and I'll also have a link on my website and my Instagram too. So Sharetta, we got you. We will definitely make sure you have it. Yes, and Malik just put the Facebook link on there. And everybody's saying that camp is so beautiful. So camp was designed by Kai Petty. Kai, I told you, and she's on here, I told you every time somebody shout out camp and say how pretty it is, I'm gonna shout you out, girl. She says OG. So yes, I am, yes, so camp was designed by Kai Petty. She's not designing right now because she's working on an amazing bridal wear line. But yeah, I had a hometown homegirl do it, and yeah, she did an amazing job. So if there are no more questions, I think that's it. I'm just kind of scrolling. No questions right now. Okay, awesome. Oh, you guys made me feel so special. Thank you. Yes, check out the podcast. Go to my website. All of that. This is amazing. Hi, Yannick, Oxon Hill.